Meltdown at Oval Office deepens US-Ukraine chill, signals to readers challenges in dealing with Trump. On Jammu and Kashmir budget session eve, Lieutenant Governor says no file struck, no interference. Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha. With the budget session of Jammu and Kashmir set to commence on Monday, Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha in an interview said he has no difficulty working with the elected government and that not a single file is struck in Raj Bhavan. I met the Chief Minister Omar Abdullah just today. We discussed various issues relating to the forthcoming budget session of the Legislative Assembly. The session will start with the LG's address on Monday and the CM, who also holds the finance portfolio. Sinha, who took oath as the LG of Jammu and Kashmir in August 2020, exactly a year after the abrogation of Article 370, said the JNK Reorganization Act clearly defined the roles of the elected government and the LG administration. I deal with law and order while they have the governance. मुझे सरकार का साथ काम करने में कोई असुविधा या परेशानी नहीं है. In search of the missing, four missing in Uttarakhand avalanche, three metal containers are key. Ensure people move freely on Manipur roads from March 8, Shah. Directing security forces to ensure free movement of people on all roads in Manipur. Amit Shah said Saturday that strict action should be taken against anyone attempting to create obstructions. 46 days on ventilator, 8 months in hospital, now mother of a boy. Shah told the security establishment to focus on recovery of weapons looted from police armories and to keep the levels of violence under check. Manipur has been roiled by ethnic violence since May 2023. He directed that the fencing work on both sides of the designated entry points along the Manipur's border with Myanmar should be completed at the earliest to make the state drug free. He said the entire network involved in the drug trade should be dismantled. The review meeting at the North Block in New Delhi was attended by Manipur Governor Ajay Kumar Bhalla, State Security Advisor Kuldeep Singh, DGP Rajiv Singh, Intelligence Bureau Chief Tapan Deka, and Union Home Secretary Govind Mohan, etc. Sources said the security forces have been instructed to ensure that Meeti people are able to pass through the hill areas of the state and the Kuki can come to Imphal Valley, especially to board flights out of the state. As of now, the two communities are unable to venture into each other's areas. Police have been already started removing illegal checkposts erected on roads by the two communities. The Indian Express had earlier reported that the government has drawn up plans to deploy security convoys to enable safe passage of goods and people across the ethnic divide. The Ministry of Home Affairs, in a statement, said Shah called for an early completion of the fencing work on the both sides of the designated entry points along the state's international border for dismantling the entire network involved in the drug trade. This was a long-standing demand of the Meeti people who claimed that drug trafficking and illegal immigration were fomenting trouble in the state. Sources said that during the meeting, Shah underlined the need for recovery of weapons. The Home Minister was categorical that the initial phase of efforts to bring back normalcy in Manipur has to focus on recovery of weapons. He also asked the security establishment to ensure that there's no fresh wave of violence in the state. The first priority is to ensure a prolonged period of peace. This will pave a way for talks. Meanwhile, the Intelligence Bureau and the Northeast Advisor, A.K. Mishra, will continue to engage groups on either sides of the ethnic divide. This was first security review meeting on Manipur that Shah chaired after the resignation of Chief Minister N. Bireng Singh on February 9. The centre imposed president rule in the state on February 13 and the responsibility of state administration and law and order passed into the hands of Governor Bhalla. Bhalla has moved to overhaul the security approach in the state, which includes rolling out an amnesty scheme for surrender of weapons, calling cracking down on militia and facilitating movement of goods and people across the ethnic divide. Bhalla's amnesty schemes for the Meeti militia Arambai Tengul surrendered to 46 weapons on Thursday. That deadline for turning in weapons has now been extended to March 6, following requests from the Kuki and Methi groups. Since the outbreak of violence in May 23, nearly 250 people are said to have died in ethnic clashes in the state. More than 6,000 weapons have been looted from police armories. Fourth, South Bloc will be heaving a sigh of relief that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was able to navigate these choppy waters during his visit to the White House last month. The contentious issues of the illegal immigration and the higher tariffs were raised respectfully, and the Indian side was able to navigate the Trump traps. That the Indian side came out of the White House with a target of a deal by this fall, and that both sides decided to work lowering tariffs of perceived and can be projected as a victory by both sides. But the groundwork was prepared by lowering tariffs on high end motorbikes, Harley Davidson, and Bourbon Jake and Daniels and Gentleman Jack, also the promise of buying American defense equipment, energy and easing of nuclear liability laws smoothened the rough edges, and most importantly, the acceptance of illegal immigrants from the US appeased the US president, who has made immigration a major poll promise. Fifth, the value of the classic old rule of diplomacy behind closed doors is becoming apparent now that this diplomacy about talks and dialogue within the room and not a spectacle for cameras. This would mean that black channel talks have more value than public statements and posturing. Former Secretary Rao also said behind closed doors diplomacy can be transacted in a much more frank and candid way, and Ukraine could have laid out down its position with unvarnished clarity before the Americans that they would that would have definitely been a way to build common ground and reduce differences. Sixth, it is now even more unlikely that India will express support for either country. New Delhi has walked up the tightrope all along, and it will continue to stay away from taking sides. Officials said India will only point to its stance position. Dialogue and diplomacy is the only path forward, and solutions cannot be found on battlefield. India's latest vote at the UN, where it abstained on the Ukraine and American resolutions, has been testament to the Delhi's diplomatic tightrope walk. Indeed, on Friday, the Prime Minister Modi and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen expressed support for just and lasting peace based on respect for international law, based on principles of UN Charter and territorial integrity and sovereignty. Second, the biggest beneficiaries of the drama in the White House as of now is Russia and President Vladimir Putin. I think Putin couldn't be happier. A European diplomat said they are drinking vodka straight out of the bottle in Kremlin tonight. This was outcome that Moscow would be happy that a break of trust and partnership between Zelensky and the US. Finally, what happens to Ukraine and war now? Ukraine knows it cannot continue the fight without US support. That might mean Ukraine will come back to Trump. Zelensky seemed to dial down in an interview after the standoff, but the road ahead is a long uphill one. He will come under pressure to renew the rare earth deal that both sides talked about, maybe also hold elections. Even if someone else becomes president, that leader will have to value their country's interest more than winning a public debate. In any case, neutral players and mediators may have to come in and bring the principal actors back to the negotiating table. All eyes are on the European interlocutors now. They will have to work harder than writing tweets in favor of Zelensky. Like the conversation, his speeches, comments, remarks, and social media posts all run counter to these norms. For him, animus on display also draws from history. Like the conversion conversation on July 25, 2019, the newly elected Zelensky, who like Trump was a pop culture figure before entering politics, he told the US president that he was in a sense a model to which Ukrainian aspired. We wanted to drain out the swamp here in our country. Zelensky said, we brought in many new people. You're a great teacher for us. A few minutes later, while talking about support for Ukraine to combat Russian backed separatist military movement in the eastern part of the country, Trump dangled aid offering in a transaction I would like you to do us a favor, he said. His request was that Ukraine dig up dirt on Joe Biden and his son Hunter. That became the basis of the first Trump impeachment. Although Zelensky has not made the phone call public, the US president remembers that the Ukrainian president did not give him give in to his demand. JD Vance, Trump's handpicked vice president, who played the wingman to the US president, many view him as one who instigated Zelensky Friday too has its own history. When Vance was a candidate for US Senate in Ohio in 22, he said Steve Bannon's War Room podcast that he thought it was ridiculous for the US to focus on the border between Ukraine and Russia. I got to be honest with you, he told the host, I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or the other. I think there are lots of democracies in the world, he told the Associated Press that March shortly after Russia launched its invasion, and every time that one of them gets in a conflict now and at the end, it can't be our concern. So, no surprise that Trump and Vance got triggered by Zelensky's statement on Russia after having endured the Ukrainian president's show and tell of pictures of war victims and his miscalculation in trashing Russian President Putin as a killer and a terrorist. Second, world is now dealing with a US president who wants above all to be seen as respected in front of his domestic audience. World leaders who understand that have swallowed their pride, zipped up their mouths, and smiled and obliged him. This happened with Jordan's King Abdullah's too when Trump talked about his plans for Gaza. The king did not contradict the president or provoke him in front of the TV crews. While he did, instead was to say he would take cancer children and then issue a statement via tweet rejecting the plan after he left the White House. Other leaders such as President Emmanuel Macron of the France and even Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the UK have been much skillful and respectful. The French president smiled and held President Trump's hand, but he also politely corrected him about Europe's contribution to the Ukrainian war effort. Starmer charmed him by handing him the invitation letter for King Charles. Zelensky, who has always been articulate and a risky taker, did not take a leaf from the playbook of those who have been to the White House before him. As former Secretary Nirupma Menon said, Zelensky literally asked for it when he walked into the Oval Office as guest of President Trump. One assumed that he had read the room properly. There was no need for him to ventilate his views on Russia. The President Putin, when the world knows where the Ukraine stands on these issues and how it has been affected, he should have said that he was in Washington to help forge an end to the conflict, to bring peace to the people of Ukraine, and the active involvement and support of the United States in this process was critical, was crucial, and was fundamental, and that Ukraine would always be grateful for that. Third, Trump-Zelensky showdown has shown that each country is now on their own. Bilateral transactionalism is at peak. New Washington doesn't respect the norms and the rules of the past, and each country has to look out for their own interest. They can no longer depend on the US or its leadership. The reliability of the American establishment and power is no longer there. Europe and Ukraine are the first victims of this phenomena. DCPs asked to intensify drives against criminals, drugs, and illegal immigrants. A day after Union Home Minister held a meeting with Chief Minister Rekha Gupta, sources in the police said the directions were issued by the Special Commissioner Law and Order at the Delhi Police Headquarters. The Special Commissioners directed all Joint Commissioners and all the 15 DCPs to intensify efforts against criminal syndicates smuggling narcotic substances and illegal immigrants staying in Delhi. Delhi has been divided into 15 police districts, which has been further divided into 6 ranges looked by Joint Commissioner rank officers. A plan will be formulated to conduct drive against illegal immigrants and their nexus. The police has been asked to break the chain from immigrant illegally entering to the city, getting identity cards made on the basis of false documents, terming it as an issue of national security that should be dealt with strictly. Shah had said Friday the Delhi police to take strict action against networks that help illegal Bangladeshis and Rohingyas enter India, including those who help them get fake documents. He said the local police need to work in coordination with elite units such as special cells and crime branch when it comes to dealing with issues of illegal immigration. Action must be taken with top to bottom, from bottom to a top approach in a narcotics cases, and such drug networks should be dismantled. No fuel for vehicle older than 15 years at pumps after March 31. High-rise buildings, hotels, commercial complexes, and major establishments such as airports, construction sites to install anti-smoke smog guns. Fuel pumps to be equipped with devices to identify overage petrol and diesel vehicles. Fuel pumps to be equipped with devices to identify overage petrol and diesel vehicles and restrict fuel supply to them. All vehicles operating inside the airport to transition to green alternatives. By 2026, at least 10,000 electric vehicles to be introduced, steps to be taken to ensure reduction in landfill waste, with parks and forests developed on clean landfill sites, cloud seeding to be used as potential measure to combat pollution during peak smog months, leading institutions like IIT Delhi and Delhi-based colleagues to be involved in pollution control efforts. Modi asked questions Khan Market gang silence on colonial drama law. The Dramatic Performance Act 1876 gave the government powers to prohibit public dramatic performances which are scandalous, defamatory, seditious, or obscene. Though the law was formally repealed in 2018 as part of Modi government exercise to weed out obsolete laws, it has not been in use since at least 1956. Now, Air India Express flights from Hindon. Union Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu flags off the first Air India Express flight from Ghaziabad Hindon Airport, which also has an IAF airbase. The aircraft, which has arrived from Kolkata, departed for Goa. The airline will operate 40 weekly flights from Hindon to key cities, including Kolkata, Mumbai, and Bengaluru. Implement Pradhan Mantri Dhanya Dhan Krishi Yojana at fast pace, addressing the post-budget webinar on agriculture and rural prosperity. Modi said government was moving towards two big goals simultaneously: first, development of agriculture, and second, prosperity of villages. India's agricultural production is at record level. Agricultural production, which was around 265 million tons 10 to 11 years ago, saw an increase to over 330 million tons. Similarly, the production related to horticulture has increased to 350 million tons. Modi said this is the result of governmental approach from seed to market. Agriculture reforms, empowerment of farmers, and strong value chains have made this possible. All of you have seen results of the aspirational districts program. The districts are getting lots of benefits of collaboration, governance, and healthy competition. War will end only on terms of acceptable to Ukraine. India is nowhere in international commercial arbitration. Dhankar by Nitish cabinet expansion has sparked JDU fears of BJP play for supremacy. Amid three-language debate, data show only 1 out of 4 Indians is multilingual. As per 2011 census, Hindi is the mother tongue of 43% of Indians, but it is spoken by less than 5% of population in 12 states and UTs. Temple Board wants no-fly zone over Tirumana Hills can disrupt tranquility. Starting an unprovoked war. Unprovoked wars are not intended to achieve a lofty goal but to advance a partisan ideology. BJP has penchant for starting unprovoked wars. The Citizenship Amendment Act and the UCC are examples. They were not designed to fulfill any felt necessity. Both CAA and UCC were pushed by the RSS BJP to create discord among the Hindu and non Hindu communities. The central government has blown the purge of another unprovoked war, this time on language. The so called three language formula was the first mooted by Radhakrishnan Committee. It was a dead on arrival. No state has ever implemented three language formula. There were many reasons. The first priority was naturally given to building schools and appointing teachers. Second was universal enrollment, keeping the children in school. And next was to improve the quality of teaching, not only of languages, but were equally important subjects like mathematics, history, geography, social studies. These tasks are incomplete after 78 years of independence. Language became an explosive issue, not because of education, but because of Article 343 of the Constitution. It declared that Hindi shall be official language of the Union, but English shall continue to be used for a period of 15 years. The 15 years ended in 1965. An unthinking government declared that with effect from January 26, 1965, Hindi would be the sole official language. The reaction was immediate and spontaneous. Tamil Nadu erupted and Dravidian party rose to power. Jawaharlal Nehru made a promise that English would continue as associate official language as long More than the promise, the exigencies of administration obliged the central government to be bilingual. Hindi and other Indian languages were not versatile enough to cope with the demands of science, law, economics, engineering, foreign trade, foreign relations, international bodies, etc. State governments are bilingual too and depend on English for passing legislation and many aspects of administration. Meantime, there have been three developments with far reaching consequences. One, in 1975, education was transformed from state list to concurrent list, eroding the autonomy of states as far as school education is concerned. Two, India embraced liberalization and globalization in 1991 and inevitably English. And three, there was a demand from parents from English medium schools, and there was a demand from parents for English medium school, and it is growing. The present conflict over aspects of the new education policy, and particular three language formula. The regional state language is first language is schools, English is the second language, but it is which is the third language. The Union Education Minister has a glib argument. NEP is a national policy and every state is constitutionally obliged to adopt the policy. Further, while NEP mandates the teaching of a third language, it does not stipulate the third language must be Hindi. Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan feigned innocence when he asked, why is the government of Tamil Nadu opposed to NEP and teaching of the third language? The answers are simple. NEP is the policy of the current central government and not mandated by the constitution. Official policy of the successive governments of Tamil Nadu have been two languages, not three, will be taught in government schools. Tamil Nadu government has put no impediment to private schools offering Hindi as a subject. Kendriya Vidyalaya schools and schools in Tamil Nadu affiliated to CBSE, ICSE, and IB offer Hindi, and thousands of children learn Hindi. The government also does not stand in the way of lakhs of children learning Hindi through Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prachar Sabha or similar organizations. As far as NEP is concerned, NEP has both good features and unacceptable features. One of the controversial features is three language formula. Three language formula is not enforced in the Hindi speaking states but sought to be enforced in the non Hindi speaking states. It is a matter of record that government schools in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Haryana follow effectively one language policy of only Hindi. Most children enrolled in government schools in these states learn no other language because there are few English teachers and hardly a teacher of any other language. Private schools are happy to follow government schools and teach Hindi. There many also teach English but not a third language. In few schools offers a third language, it is invariably Sanskrit. In states like Punjab, Gujarat, Maharashtra, the third language is Hindi, but it is very well known that Punjabi, Gujarati, and Marathi have close kinship with Hindi. Besides, the quality of English taught is appallingly poor. Children studying in government schools where English is taught hardly speaks English outside the English classroom. This is true for all states, Tamil Nadu included. Before the Minister of Education policed Tamil Nadu into accepting three language formula, really Hindi as third language, he should make a success of teaching two languages and regional language and English over India. Government has failed to teach English and the agreed second language, ambitions to succeed in teaching third language. Centered around a woman who gets married into a family where she is expected to do unending housework, both films make visible the unfair distribution of labor that goes into running a household. Both films also share troubling worldview when it comes to waste and cleaning, reinforcing caste-based ideas of purity and pollution. This makes feminism starkly incomplete. Though, through its sharp ending, the ironically titled Great Indian Kitchen often contrasts sequences of women working with those of men relaxing. This effectively articulated its point of gender distribution of labor. The women of the house, the mother-in-law, and the protagonist, played by Nimisha Sajan, and work and work with no end in sight. They are neither respected nor acknowledged in accordance with how integral their labor is to running of the house. The film makes us uncomfortable because it makes visible what we all otherwise see as normal. The impact is powerful. Mrs. relies on more on Sanya Malhotra's expressiveness to convey the unfairness of the situation. One of the one of its beautiful additions to the original plot is lovely dancing sequence where Malhotra's character Richa tries to make her situation interventive by playing around in the kitchen only to be interrupted by her father-in-law who views everything she does to make her life easy as a threat to her status quo. At the heart of the film though lies a problematic worldview. This can be seen in the difference in how the films view cooking and how they view cleaning. In both films, there is a running sequence of a clogged sinks and leaking drain pipe. This plot point is very important to the film's climax, but the imaginary imagery it relies to evoke our disgust is troubling. Our sympathy towards the protagonist comes from the fact that we do not think she should be doing this work. In fact, early on, Miss Richa tells her mother-in-law that she could leave the kitchen work for the Kamwali who will come to work in the morning. Would it have been okay if unpaid domestic worker did the work? As the film proceeds, smell and touch become important. We watch extended sequences of the upper caste protagonist unclogging the sink, touching the uh, outflowing dustbin, and frantically washing her hands. Contrast this with how films view cooking. Through striking images, both films beautifully demonstrate that there is nothing inherently exploitative about cooking. It can be intricate as a sign of love and care. It becomes a problem only when it is not shared, valued, and consented to. What stops us from extending the same perspective to waste? Just like cooking is not inherently exploitative, waste disposal is not inherently dirty or polluting. Garbage disposal can be less burdensome with technological innovation and given dignity. Perhaps this is why both films appear confused when they try to comment on the position of domestic worker who comes to rescue when protagonist is menstruating. A brief conversation about how she does not stop working even when she is on her period is danger of romanticizing the domestic worker's exploitation. To be fair, Great Indian's Kitchen is courageous enough to make links with the Supreme Court judgment of Sabrimala, which woke with tradition by ending the exclusion of women from the temple, and Mrs. acknowledges the presence of caste that regressive uh, ideas of Chhuachut followed in the house, yet neither film can escape its limited view of caste. A feminism that doesn't understand the mutually implicating link between labor, caste, and gender will always fall short of imagining a truly equal world. Leave Me Alone, This Women's Day. A group which also runs a lab has offered me women's space, special health checkup, TSH, and ferritin levels emailed to you at discounted price rates, mammogram at half the rate price. Once open the screens and there offers raining of makeup, skincare, and clothing from factories that wants us to consume more. The other day, when someone asked me about most valuable real estate, I said it is the space between one's ears. Headspace is the most precious space. It is where one lives. The noise in the head is constant, shrill, and annoying. It is programmed to plan ahead. Have you ever analyzed a woman's handbag? It is symbolic of a headspace that is overloaded. A man's purse is just plastic, paper money, membership cards. I find men mostly unbothered about sunscreen or chapped lips. I have male colleagues who walked into the office without a shave, cool, easy, and light. The load of caregiving and maintenance of Indian women across all levels is tremendously heavy. If not the children, then the maintenance of the house, spouse, parents, added to the pressures of the career if she has one. And then the pressure to look well put together, which has become a euphemism for not having one wavered eyebrow hair, not a pleat out of place, even if her heartbeat is. She should know to apply the right color corrector, the right cushion covers as per season. My friends and I go on girls' trips, but only after stashing foods in the refrigerator, filling canisters with healthy strings, and detailed notes on how and what not to. Even when away, the frequent phone calls and video calls with children, parents, partner amplifies her role as a crisis manager. Multitasking is no longer a compliment, but a ticket to mayhem in the head. The result of this is a hyper alert state of women is the stress load and neuroticism that is the butt of all jokes and memes. If it is not for Desi Mom, who would comedians have to roast? Desi Mom is now the hashtag. The shout screams is sarcastic, and one heads the children abusive and mental most of the time. This Women's Day and on other days, I want to reclaim my headspace, outgrow the demands to manage and maintain self in others. I want to be left alone without any unseen load on my frozen shoulders. I want to borrow the words of Virginia Woolf and tell my girls that there is no need to hurry, no need to sparkle, no need to be anyone but oneself, Women's Day or not. Do we ask our boys enough? Where does it hurt? This month brought the sad news of two boys dying in Ashoka University, according to reports. One by suicide. The signs of mental health crisis among the young has been around for a while, but still we still don't have enough understood what is going on and how we can help. I am wary of giving parenting advice because each child is different and like everything else it is contextual. Parenting today is often a lonely journey because in the last few decades the burden of child rearing has been placed solely on parents in the nuclear family, but raising children has never been just the responsibility of parents. To raise a child is to facilitate the process of knowing the self and building the relationship with the world. This requires all of us to think how we imagine the world and others in our lives. To speak of my experience of raising a boy requires that I preface it with privilege of class, of having supportive family close by and friends. This enabled many choices that have contributed to the way He inhabits the world. At 32, I became a mother to a boy with a mixed Hindu Muslim parentage. This context forced me to ask questions like what would be child's religion, what cultural legacy would his name draw from, questions like these ones. We all need to address but rarely come up in most families. It may seem easier to unquestioningly follow customs. When my son was in class 2, his first name brought him the attention in that many Muslim children across the country faced. Classmates told him that all Muslims were terrorists. This meant that I had to talk to my son about the world, how it is intertwined with personal and his and my feelings. It also meant conversations with the school. I don't know if conversations changed anything, but I know that two boys continue to talk and play together in school. This is life contradictory, mixed up, consistent. My parenting journey taught me that one's constant discover things both about the child and oneself that are not always palatable. For all my rejection of autocracy, as a parent, I have found myself wanting to say, because I say so, and I have, and will be done. Fortunately, my little boy and others in my life challenged me, forcing me to think about what I wanted and what I was doing. That's a big lesson that our desires are not always pure and our actions do not always have to ride on them. Recognizing our desires does not automatically mean that we act on them, but repressing them can be seen lead to twisted behavior. To acknowledge our inner self is not just a private act, but also requires the need to have someone in our life who asks us where does it hurt in a world it is so focused on how we appear. The Ghost of Bofors returns. Last week I read the most important book about India's political culture that I have read in a long time. It is called Bofors Gate and has been written by Chitra Subramaniam, without whose standing investigative journalism and truth about bribes that Bofors paid to howitzers to Indian sell their howitzers to Indian army may never have to come out. Trust, transparency, teamwork, tech, key objectives. New SEBI Chief Pandey. Stock market offers ample opportunities for retail investors. Just-in-time release of funds saves 26,000 crore in interest cost. Fight the obesity challenge with experts as Prime Minister Narendra Modi fronts an anti-obesity campaign. Specialists from cities laid down guidelines to trim fat. Cut down your oil consumption by 10%. Processed for foods are the highest calories. Get out of the sitting habit. Set up an alarm to get up after an hour sitting continuously and walk for around 50-20 minutes. Be active in your daily life as much as possible and allocate 45 to 60 minutes for exercise. A routine for children. Children should eat at home cooked balanced diet and exercise for 45 minutes. Adults must track blood sugar, cholesterol, and tailor-made routines for the elderly. Make sure there's a source of protein in every meal. Don't want to hit the gym? Use these tools instead. Use bottles as weights. Try to push-ups, wall push-ups. When we lift weights, we break down muscle fibers. Fasting does not mean skipping meals. It is about spacing them better. Stay consistent. Go for fiber. Treat one chapati as one complete portion of carbs slowly and reduce 500 calories from your daily food intake. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.